Hi, good evening, everyone. We are once again back on the series of Empower the Determined. And we at EduScan are committed to ensure that the community is the center and we try providing you the best. And today we have another great scholar from miles and miles away. And today we have with us Dr. Priyaranjan Avinash. And Dr. Priyaranjan is from India. He is sitting on the mountains of Dehradun out there. It's a beautiful city in the northern part of India. And we're very delighted to have Dr. Priyaranjan with us today. Dr. Priyaranjan is, as I said, that he is working in the field of psychiatry for years together. He's a researcher. He has lots of publications, more than 30 publications in national and international. He's a blogger in magazines and newspapers, in journals, his articles are there. And he is a young scientist who's got so many awards to his credit. His award has been the Torrent Young Scholar Award, and he's been also honored as an early career psychiatrist fellowship, which is amazing. Congratulations to you, doctor. We are so happy to have you with us. And he's been working on two very strong online platforms where we understand today in the era of pandemic, all around the world, the mental need has become the center point, and it is so significant that these online platforms are able to cater to people across the world. He's been working on the e-psyche clinic and I Will Wellness portal. It is amazing to have you on this platform today with us, Doctor, because I know that the parents, the teachers, the whole community is so concerned today about the mental health of not only of ourselves, but of our children. And today we have chosen to talk on the topic of attention deficit hyperactive disorder, known as ADHD. Doctor, tell us more about your journey in the field of psychiatry, and then we will come to that what exactly ADHD is.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am, for a very elaborate introduction of mine. You haven't left anything for me to tell actually about me, but if I have to tell you about my journey in the field of psychiatry, uh, I was, when I joined medical college in India, in Bombay, this college was Grant Medical College. So this college has its own reputation. It's one of the oldest medical colleges in India. And probably from the day one, I knew that I am not cut out for any other branch of medicine except psychiatry. Even during my clinical postings in surgery and other branches of medicine, I used to feel as if I don't belong there. So, but the very brief, I would say, like 15 days posting of psychiatry that we all had during our undergraduate training of MBBS, I knew that this is the place that I would like to probably be all my life professionally. And that's where my journey began. Then I did my master's, postgraduate master's from Mumbai itself, from another reputed medical college in Mumbai. And then I did my MD in psychiatry from Guwahati University, that's in Assam. Uh, Following which, I have worked in many parts of India. I've been to north part of India. I worked in the holy city of Banaras for a brief while after my after my master's in psychiatry. I had worked in Bangalore in one of the most reputed medical colleges of psychiatry, NIMHANS, for a very brief stint. Then I also worked in Assam, the eastern part, northeastern part of India. So after all this journey, I somehow landed up in this beautiful city of Dehradun. And after that, I did not know where to go. I just love this place. So it has been 5 years now since I joined this place. And now I'm the associate professor in my department, as well as I'm a consultant of psychiatry. And I see both kind of patients, adult patients, as well as children with mental health issues. So I reckon today's topic is ADHD, attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. So I would that's my journey. And I request you to now ask the questions that you have regarding ADHD, and I would be more than happy to answer for my audience. Thank you.
Sure, doctor. Thank you so much for introducing yourself. Doctor, ADHD is a term which is very commonly used. But how common is ADHD among schoolgoers? What do you have to tell us about that? And if you could also tell our viewers a little bit more about what is ADHD?
Well, the term itself is almost self-explanatory. It's attention deficit and hyperactive disorder. So ADHD is basically a condition predominantly seen in children where there is either a problem of inattention or lack of attention, that is attention deficit, or there is hyperactivity or impulsivity. So broadly, ADHD, when historically, when we see ADHD, the concept was construed in a manner that either the child would have inattention, or the child would be very impulsive and hyperactive at the same time. Later, it was realized that the majority of children of ADHD would have both these problems. So they would be having inattention as well as hyperactivity and impulsivity. Now, such kind of children, most of the school teachers and even the parents would complain that my child seems to be as if he is driven by a motor. Means simply, it's hard to just control his energy. In Hindi, if many of your audience would be familiar with Hindi, so typically parents will tell that my child, mera bacha, bahut chanchal hai. And when we say the word chanchal, it has very positive connotation. So in the very beginning of my training in psychiatry, I used to feel, what's the harm if the child is chanchal? I mean, so it was a very positive connotation in my mind. But when I saw those children in my clinic, I realized what this chanchal means, and it's definitely a problem. If I cannot handle that child for 5 minutes in my clinic, imagine how the teachers and the parents are handling those children in their house 24/7. So these children seems to be totally driven by motor. They are absolutely running and jumping and fidgety and touching things and being very curious. And such kind of child, when you talk to them, they don't seem to be listening to you. So because they're inattentive and also they're hyperactive, these children would often blurt out answers before you even complete your question. Like you are asking something and the child is so impulsive that he would imagine that, okay, what you are going to ask, and he will blurt out the answer. And many a times those answers will be incorrect. Not because the child doesn't know the answer, because of the impulsivity. These children are also, especially in the school environment, are often would be called as the mischievous children or the naughty children. Those children who disturbs the class the most. So when the child is being taught in the class, he would not pay attention to whatever is being taught, would not look at the blackboard or the whiteboard or whatever the teacher is teaching, and would be mostly interested in things that is happening around him, like how the other boy is doing, what is happening outside the window. So these children are usually not in the present, they are in somewhere else. So this inattention, this hyperactivity, impulsivity, not just affect them in their school environment or the home environment. It affects them in every environment a child goes through. So this is definitely a problem, especially because it hampers learning. And that's one of the reasons why most of the parents would bring their children with such kind of symptoms, primarily because they would say, doctor, my child is not performing as good in his school or in his studies as he should be. He's a smart child, but he's not able to. I'm mostly using he for a reason because predominantly ADHD is seen in boys. So that is one reason why I'm mostly using this as saying a pronoun as he.
Ranjan, is it established that the boys have this more than the girls, and what kind of a percentage?
Ma'am, yeah. So first of all, in general population among the children, ADHD, if you go by the latest data which are published in conventional journals of repute, or which is now common knowledge because it has come in the textbook, the percentage of children in the school age, like young children to adolescent age group, the percentage of children with ADHD would be somewhere around 5%, 5 to 6%. Depending on, again, where you are taking your data from. Like in the Western world, the prevalence is known to be a little higher than in the Eastern world. There could be many reasons why this difference in the prevalence. So somewhere around 5 to 6%. But if you compare among the boys and the girls, majority of the studies that have been done up till now says that it is definitely more prevalent in boys. But the difference in the prevalence of boys and girls varies from study to study, community to community, culture to culture. Somewhere around 2 to 3 times more than girls. In certain studies, there are studies which say that almost 10 times more than girls. So you can maybe roughly calculate somewhere around 4 to 5 times, definitely. Even in my clinical practice, I have seen most of the time it is boys who are brought to my clinic more often for problems of ADHD. However, I would like to add one thing. The reason why many of the times boys who seem to be more commonly affected by ADHD than girls is because the symptoms of ADHD in girls are not typically the symptoms that you see in boys. On the like the kind of aggression and activity level that you see in boys, in women or the girl child, it is usually a different kind of aggression that you see. It's mostly verbal aggression. It's mostly passive aggression. Mostly there is internalization of symptoms. So, and mostly inattention. So you see more of inattention, more of passive aggression, more of verbal aggression in girl child than a boy child.
All right, interesting. Doctor, what causes ADHD?
Yeah, this is a very relevant question, and I am sure most parents who have their children been diagnosed as ADHD would be questioning, why my child? I mean, what went wrong? So, majority of the data that we have till now, and if I have to conclude from all the available data, almost 75%, 70 to 75% of the children, the ADHD, if you look into the cause, is predominantly genetic in nature, predominantly hereditary in nature. So predominant ADHD can be explained by heredity. The rest of the ADHD that we see, around 25 to 30% of that, is usually explained by multiple factors. For factors such as low birth weight, when the child was born, maybe he was born prematurely with low birth weight. Some birth trauma because the child was born due to some difficulty in pregnancy in the labor, leading to some hypoxic brain injury, means the child could not breathe immediately after he was born, leading to some kind of damage into the brain. Sometimes alcoholic, like children of mothers who had problem of addiction of alcohol or other substances, and they continued taking alcohol or the other substances while they were pregnant. Such children, when they were born, also have a relatively higher prevalence of ADHD than the general population. Some amount of poisoning has also been known. Like, for example, certain children have a habit of taking unedible thing in their mouth, leading to lead poisoning. So that kind of, like, we call it pica, that habit of children putting everything in their mouth. A very young child usually have a habit, but by 2 to 3 years of the age, majority of the children leave this habit. But some children continue this habit for longer and more age. So this habit can also sometimes lead to certain kind of poisoning, especially lead poisoning. So these are some of the biological causes behind ADHD. Very rarely, among majority of childhood disorders, usually have psychological and environmental factors also. But when it comes to ADHD, it is largely biological and hereditary factors which contribute in the prevalence of ADHD, largely.
Thank you so much, Dr. Priyaranjan. What are the differential diagnoses of ADHD?
Often, when the child comes to our clinic, when we are interviewing the child, when it comes to diagnosing anything in a child, we usually take a lot of time, because usually the diagnosis that we make in a hurry turns out to be wrong. So in a case of a child, we take a lot of time to take detailed history of the child, detailed history from the parent side, also if possible from the school side. We ask the school teachers to give their reports, etc. And after all this, we many a times find comorbidities, means these children not just have ADHD, they also seem to have some other psychiatric childhood disorders along with it. So these comorbidities can also be sometimes differential diagnosis. Means either these two disorders, ADHD and this other disorder, is present together, or what we are thinking on the apparent is ADHD is not ADHD but something else. So those are differential diagnoses. So the comorbidities and differential diagnoses are usually almost the same. So I will tell you the most common comorbidities that we see with ADHD and many times also happen to be differential diagnosis is learning disability. In my own practice, I have seen that learning disability, children with learning disability usually are also brought by their parents saying that my child is not performing very well in his class, but he seems to be a smart person. If you give him a mobile phone, he knows every way out. So what is going on? We realize that these children are, because they are not able to grasp the concept, because of their reading and writing difficulty that they have, they are not able to follow through what is being taught in the school. Sudden become very inattentive. So it's not the inattention leading to poor performance. It's the vice versa. They are finding it very difficult to understand the concept. And since they don't understand the concept, since they're not able to perform adequately, out of frustration, they become inattentive, they become fidgety, they become difficult to manage in the class. And many times the children are brought that this child is very hyperactive, very naughty. And when we dig deeper, we realize that this child might be suffering from learning disability, but ADHD. And when the learning disability was managed, usually learning disability is all about management by non-pharmacological methods, then the children also become more attentive. They also become more cooperative in the class. So learning disability is one. Autism spectrum disorders, some of the autism spectrum disorders, especially the relatively high functioning autism spectrum disorder, where the IQ is not less. Such children are often sometimes confused with ADHD. Sometimes mild to moderate, mild or borderline intellectual function children will also have behavioral problems. So such kind of child also sometimes often get confused with ADHD. Sometimes oppositional defiant disorder means children who has problem with when it comes to following rules and regulations at home or at school, they don't follow it because they have a problem of defiance. So they defy and oppose rules. So such children also sometimes get misdiagnosed as ADHD. Sometimes conduct disorder, children with conduct disorder get misdiagnosed with ADHD. Many types of disorders can be one of the differential diagnoses for ADHD.
Certainly, doctor. Thank you so much. But what do you suggest to our parent and teacher community that how early can we diagnose ADHD? By what age?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, when we go by the criteria, there are two things. One is the criteria that you read in the book, and one is what we actually see in our clinic. Obviously, the mother usually among the set of the parent, mother is more anxious. That is what we see from my experience. They want the exact diagnosis at the age of 2 years or 3 years also. I have children in my clinic and they are not even completed 3 years, and the child is brought by the mother saying that my child is very hyperactive, he's not paying attention. Even in his preschool, others have learned how to say ABCD, he's not able to, and all those things. And they're very anxious. And they must have read somewhere that this could be ADHD because he's so hyperactive. And they want me to diagnose ADHD or give me some definitive answer that what my child is having. In such children, I usually tell them that wait and watch. Because ADHD, if you go by the diagnostic criteria, interestingly, the most recent diagnostic manual of mental illness, DSM, we all are familiar with, the DSM-5, have changed a very interesting component in the diagnosis. Earlier, it was said, if the symptoms have not come by the age of 7 years, then it is not ADHD. But now they have stretched that limit to 12 years. They are saying if the symptoms have not come up to the age of 12 years, then you can say it is not ADHD. So you can wait up to 12 years. Some of the symptoms may take age up to 12 years to come. So the variation has come up so much that sometimes even a 5-year or 6-year-old child, if I'm not very sure, I would rather say let's wait and watch. Because why I'm saying that? Because the management of a child with ADHD, as far as pharmacology is concerned, as far as medicine is concerned, is usually not given before the age of 6. Usually,
So
it is
6 years.
6 years. Unless the child is very disruptive, very disruptive, and you have tried every means and not been able to control his behavior, we absolutely refrain from giving medical help in the form of medicine to a child with ADHD symptoms before the age of 6 years. Most of the time, rarely we give. So if we are not going to give pharmacological help before the age of 5 to 6 years, what's the rush? Anyways, we can continue with the behavioral modification and the behavioral therapy, and the parent need to be educated. Those things we can continue. So usually not before 3 years, definitely. The most commonly at common age at which we in our clinic, and I think most of the other clinicians also in their clinic, diagnose ADHD somewhere around 5 to 6 years, not before that.
So Dr. Priyaranjan, can you guide the parent community who's going to viewing this platform probably later? What is very important is how to manage ADHD. Now, we know that it could be mild, moderate, severe to profound, but any parent who see that the child is hyperactive, is not being able to control at home, and they have concern, do you really have some kind of a guidelines for them, or how should they be managing a child?
Right, ma'am. Actually, you are right, ma'am. More than the child, the parent needs to be managed. And it's not just the case with ADHD, predominantly in all childhood disorders. It is the parent that we work more and we work less with the child. The first thing that if I have diagnosed and I know for sure that it is ADHD, the first thing that I do with my clients, the child's parent, is to sit with them and make them absorb the diagnosis. Unless they have gone into this phase of acceptance, they most likely are going to another clinician, then to another clinician, then to another clinician. And that is what usually leads to frustration, disappointment, and precious time is lost. So most important thing is to accept the diagnosis. And that is where I start my work with. So we make the parent spend some time and answer all their queries. From how did I come to the conclusion of ADHD? What are the symptoms? What are the signs? What is the prognosis? They have million of questions. Definitely, it's their child, and they are very anxious. They will ask these questions. So after I have answered those questions to the satisfaction of the parent, majority of time they accept that diagnosis. Once they have accepted the diagnosis, then only change would begin. So first of all, accept the diagnosis after, clarification of all your doubts and fulfilling all the criteria. And the next step is to formulate a treatment plan.
Certainly.
And that treatment plan, as I have already told in my course of this last question, when I was answering the question, as far as the treatment plan is concerned, if the child is very young, that means less than 6 years, pharmacological management is usually refrained. So we don't go into that direction. And if the child is more than 6 years and the child has very severe kind of ADHD symptom, then we start with both pharmacotherapy, means giving medicine, as well as all kind of behavioral and non-pharmacological management. Now, if I have to talk more about non-pharmacological management, starting from acceptance to formulating a treatment plan, to next going with the structuring of the time of the child. Structuring is very important. Structuring of the time of the child as well as the parent. In India, many times the family are living in a joint family setup. So there are not just parents, there are grandparents, uncles, aunts, etc. So in such cases, I actually even include these pseudo parents, I would say, or I would say proxy parents, the uncle, aunt, and grandfather also in the treatment plan. Because if they would not comply with this structuring of the time, making of the routine, and limit setting, then the whole purpose would be defeated. So whoever is a parent figure in the family, whoever, everybody need to be part of the treatment team.
Very true.
Right.
Very,
So
very
everybody need to be a part of the treatment team. In nuclear family, it is relatively easy, but nuclear family has its own problem, because many times if both the parents are working and they are leaving their child with a maid or in a play school or some kind of a crash, then also there is a problem. So there is no one treatment modality that fits every child. Every child is unique. Every family is unique. We accordingly, based on the family to family and child to child, we modify our treatment plan. Now, structuring of time, as I have told, is very important. That a child, what time he gets up, when does he do all his basic daily chores, what time he goes to school, when does he has lunch, what is your play time, what is his sleep time. Everything need to be, as far as possible, stick to the routine. With clocks and alarms, we do this. With timers, clocks, alarms, we do it so that the child has less risk of from and becoming more more hyperactive. Sports has very important role. Personally, especially when it comes to children with lot of hyperactivity, if we engage them into active sports, especially team sports, these children usually get their hyperactivity gets channelized. It channelized into something more healthy. So sports itself is a very good alternative, especially for a predominantly hyperactive child. When it comes to inattention, I usually teach the parents about how you need to give your instructions. If the child is given a complex instruction, if your child is given an instruction which has more than one option, such kind of instructions are usually confusing and it further escalates the inattention in the child. So when you are talking to the child, age appropriate instruction in a relatively simple, non-complex, to the point instruction should be given as far as possible. So there are many techniques like this. Parents also need to work on themselves, because many times I see that parents get into something called as caregiver burden or caregivers. They started having their own suffering. So we tell the parent that you need to also take care of your mental health, your physical health, and your own me time is equally important. So on both the parent, the child, and all the proxy parent and the school teacher. So together, all of them form a team, and then how we work with them as far as management of a child with ADHD is concerned.
Thank you very, very much for your lovely discussion for our parent and teacher community. And I'm sure you've given them ample of points to work on. And the more they hear, the more they interact and more they get to know from the professionals, I'm sure it lessens their burden or the challenges they face. Because the moment they are in a mindset, and as Dr. Priyaranjan rightly said, the first point is acceptance. So the moment you accept this, then only the journey begins. So identification and then the acceptance for whatever has been diagnosed. Thank you so much for your time to be with us this evening. And we look forward to your continuous association with our lovely EduScan group. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot, all the listeners today on this platform. Thanks a lot for sparing your valuable time, Doctor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, madam. And thank you for the lovely question that you asked, actually. So, and thank you, EduScan and the audience. Thank you very much.
Have a pleasant day to follow. Bye-bye.
You too, ma'am. You too.